Okay. Good morning, everyone. For us, this is a day to acknowledge great accomplishments for the American people. When American people voted for a Democratic White House and a Democratic majorities in the Congress, we promised help is on the way. And now help is here. Democrats have been living for the people to build back better, passing the American Rescue Plan to crush the coronavirus and defeat the economic crisis, including with the Biden child tax cut. Biden tax credit for some, it really is a tax cut for all. Passing landmark laws for equal pay, empowering workers, lowering healthcare costs, creating jobs, rebuilding the infrastructure, and more. Thanks to the Democratic leadership, the Build Back Better economy is working. It's working. Thank you, Mr. President. Jobs are coming back, going from 60,000 jobs every month to 60,000 jobs every 3 days. 30 days, 3 days. And 1/10 to the time, 60,000 jobs. Wages are rising, checks are growing at the strongest rate in 15 years. The economy is booming. Yesterday, you saw the economy grow at the fastest rate in nearly 40 years. Families are benefiting. Poverty is set to be cut in half this year, with the share of Americans living in poverty set to reach the lowest level on record. But to sustain this growth for years to come and to ensure that we can share in its benefits, that all can share in its benefits, we need to be transformative in terms of how we go forward with infrastructure investments and reconciliation bills that truly meet families' needs. We will build back better with more jobs, cut taxes, and lower costs for all. We're proud to be here with our dazzling chairs of the committees who made so much of this possible. You'll be hearing from Leader Steny Hoyer, Whip Jim Clyburn, Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark, and our committee chairs stand ready to answer any questions about what is right now. We are celebrating record-breaking accomplishments on passage of the appropriations bills, thanks to the virtuoso performance of our great chair, Rosa DeLauro. We are just so grateful to Frank Pallone for in every one of the bills for the last year and a half that he has been there to help with crushing the virus, and now truly doing so and actually having an impact on the infrastructure legislation as well. Our chair, Peter DeFazio, is just a maestro at all of this. He knows issues that relate to infrastructure better than anyone. He's been at it for decades on the committee of jurisdiction, and now so proudly for all of us as its chairman. But he also knows how to save the planet, and the combination of those two is absolutely essential at this time. And Richie Neal, my goodness, everything goes through Richie Neal's committee. Thank you for the child tax cut. Thank you for so many other things that I'm sure you will tell us about. Richie said, everybody goes out and makes some investments and then comes to us to pay for them. We want to initiate some of our own ideas about this. Child tax credit, family and medical leave, child care, so many issues. Thank you to the Ways and Means Committee, and the list goes on. We're also joined by our distinguished chair and vice chair of the caucus, Congress, Mr. Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, Vice Chair Peter Aguilar, and the chair of our DCCC, who knows why we have to make sure the American people get the message, because it is in their interest. With that, I'm very pleased to yield to the distinguished, I have to say it right. Chuck said I didn't say it right yesterday. Distinguished Democratic leader, majority leader of the House, Steny Hoyer.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. The speaker said it. The last time the economy grew at this pace and it was so good, Ronald Reagan said it was good morning in America. What an extraordinary first 7 months we've had in the Congress of the United States. We infamously started out with a tragedy for our democracy. And yesterday we dealt with that in a bipartisan way. Democrats have an extraordinary amount of work done. This Congress on behalf of the American people. And one of the most important things we've done is enacting the American Rescue Plan. Reached out and lifted up millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Americans. And the economy shows that. Economic numbers show the impact of this law is having substantial positive effect, with the economy growing at its fastest pace in 4 decades. That law directed resources to speed up vaccinations, allowing for the safe reopening of businesses and schools, returning millions to work. Nearly 70% of the adults in our country are now at least partially vaccinated. We need more, much more. We need everybody to become vaccinated. But we provided for quick access and universal access. Now everybody needs to take advantage of it. Nearly half of our total population is fully protected, but we see today that that is not enough, and the president is urging, and we are urging, more. Unfortunately, some of our colleagues have for too long said it really wasn't necessary. More than 300 million vaccinations have taken place since President Biden took office. That is a success, and one we need to keep building on as we work to get every American vaccinated. The law also provided another round of direct payments that have helped keep families afloat, with 171 million direct payments going out the door, lifting not only those 171 million people, but our economy. The American Rescue Plan also launched the expanded middle-class tax cut we call also the child tax, to make sure that children can make it in America and are lifted up in America. As a result of that action, 30 million American families received their first monthly payments in July of $300 for each child under 6 and $250 for each child from 6 to 17. With a lump sum payment of the balance when they file taxes next year, they will mean $3,600 for each child and under 6 and $3,000 for children ages 6 through 17, 2021. That is prioritizing children in America. This middle-class tax cut is having a real impact on families, helping them afford everyday expenses and to purchase goods, which helps the economy. Across the country, more than 4 million children will be lifted out of poverty by this expanded child tax payment to families. And it's projected to cut the child poverty rate by as much as a half. That's God's work. It's the people's work. The American Rescue Plan with the child tax credit is making a transformational investment in the lives of children and the families across America. I'm extraordinarily proud of what we've achieved. A lot of legislation that the American people were told that we would do has been done. It sits in the Senate, and hopefully it will be adopted to the benefit of the American people. Now I want to introduce my good friend, the whip, who has been so critical to the success that we've had in the House of Representatives on passing this historic legislation, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Jim?
I thank the leader for yielding. I thank the speaker for the tremendous leadership that she's given to this caucus. And I thank all of my colleagues here who have been so good on all of these issues. Our chair, our assistant speaker, the chairs of our various committees. I think we saw on yesterday, or reports today, of what happened in Georgia on yesterday involving the issue of voting. Among the things that we have done, we've passed H.R. 1, and we sent H.R. 1 to the Senate, and the Senate is now exerting its will as it relates to that language. We have not yet passed H.R. 4, and I want to speak to that because some of the reporting of that is not quite accurate. H.R. 4 was basically a renewal, or getting beyond, or trying to get beyond the Supreme Court's decision as it relates to the 1965 Voting Rights Act. 9 years ago in Shelby v. Holder, the Supreme Court said to us that the formula in Section 4 that triggers pre-clearance of Section 5 was outdated, and we needed to redo the formula. The Speaker then authorized several people to go about the business of updating the formula. Now, when you deal with that, you got to go out, you got to gather facts, and you put that all together. And we've done it. Both the committee that G.K. Butterfield was working with, they've had all of their hearings. They've developed a record. Judiciary Committee chaired by Jared Nadler, they've had theirs, and they are now putting all that together, and we expect by next week they will lay out, we hope, on the anniversary date of the signing of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was August 6, 1965, several months after Bloody Sunday. And so that's the date that we have decided to roll out H.R. 4 now. H.R. 4 then goes to the Senate. We have heard with all of the negotiations we've had with various people that there is even Republican support for H.R. 4. How much Republican support, we don't know. But we do believe that we have a very good product. And there are two things we have to keep in mind when we talk about voting rights. Number one, the original 1965 Voting Rights Act dealt with a history of discrimination. And that's why that act was, what, 6 states were the targets. And therefore, we had to have it narrowly tailored, and we had to justify it with this record. However, there's tremendous sentiment in our caucus for expanding pre-clearance to all 50 states. And that is because 48 states have either proposed or passed. 48 states have proposed, and I think 28 states have already passed restrictive laws, which means that a lot of those states would not be covered because they do not have a history of discriminating. They've just taken that on as a new place to be when it comes to voting. And so we have to be prepared for a state like Pennsylvania that is expressing some onerous ideas about voting going forward. So I am very pleased with the work that we've done with H.R. 1 and with H.R. 4. I think that we will have a product going to the Senate by next week this time will test that are required. With that, I'm pleased to yield to Assistant Speaker, Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Whip Clyburn, and thank you, Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer and the incredible leaders behind me for delivering these historic and life-changing wins for the American people. This week, ably led by our chairwoman, Rose DeLauro, House Democrats passed 9 major funding bills that not only confront the challenges that we face, but will build a more equitable and sustainable future. This bold funding package puts American families front and center, exactly where they should be. We're making healthcare more affordable and feeding hungry children and families. We're getting people back to work and creating thousands of good-paying green jobs with investments in clean energy and science. We're tackling the housing crisis through 125,000 new low-income vouchers. We're acting to prevent domestic violence and helping survivors and confronting sexual assault and harassment in the military. We are making unprecedented investments in our children and childcare, including Head Start. And for the first time in decades, we're standing up for healthcare for all women and their constitutional rights by repealing the Hyde and Helms amendments and global and domestic gag rules. The last 18 months have been so challenging. I don't have to tell anybody about that. But we are meeting as the House Democratic Caucus these historic challenges with historic progress. Our message to the American people is simple. We see you, and we are building an economy that includes you. From the American Rescue Plan to the funding package, and next through infrastructure, we are rebuilding our economy with equity at the center and with jobs and opportunity as our promise. We will ensure that every American, every woman and child has a fair shot at success. Thank you. It is a good morning indeed, and I yield back.
Thank you so much. Listening to our leadership go over so many of these things, I think it would be important to put an exclamation point on some of this, starting with the child tax credit system. It's about the children, as Denny referenced. It's about children. Oh, it's about he has floor duty about the children. Mr. Neal, would you like to put an exclamation point on all of this?
Sure. I mean, I thought, thanks to the speaker for her leadership, a reminder of how grim things were 17 months ago when we stepped outside of her office just past midnight with our first plan. And then the HEROES Act that she largely authored after the CARES Act, which saved the American economy, and then the President's Rescue Package. When you think of what was accomplished, including the child credit, which we expanded now into more middle-class households across the country, it's going to have a profound impact. And clearly to sit in the Oval Office with the president and say to him, we're going to include the child credit. And he said, I'm going to support you. And to talk about the dependent care credit, the extended ATE, family medical leave. And there are 2 million people across America who sleep every night now knowing that their pensions are not going to be lost because of the multi-employer pension plan progress that we put forward. So we made it possible for people to simultaneously increase demand, because supply will certainly follow. Those are basic normality. I can't tell you how extraordinary it is when you pick up that Times report yesterday morning to say that poverty rates have been cut in half just because of the work that we've done. And when you continue, as Steny pointed out, 170 million people receive direct benefits from the federal government. There's a role for government in our lives, and the direct intervention of the federal government on 3 successive occasions have helped turn around this economy. 22 million jobs were lost, and now we're back to pre-pandemic levels. That's, I think, what we are acknowledging today, but it was the work of the Democratic caucus, patience, but not to miss the point how important it is to have a Democrat sitting in the White House.
That was somewhat what the distinguished chairman mentioned happened early in the administration of Joe Biden. Part of that rescue plan was the work of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Mr. Chairman, do you want to brag about some of what's there and what's to come?
Well, I'll just mention 2 points relative to healthcare. First of all, during the whole time of the COVID crisis, while Donald Trump was president, we were constantly hearing complaints about lack of supplies, inability to get help, whether it was testing, vaccines hadn't started then, to the American people. And all that has just completely turned around since Joe Biden and since the Democrats have been in the majority in both houses in Washington. And if you look at the American Rescue Plan, in terms of the money that went out and the way that we've been able to handle the COVID crisis, I mean, I know that we're not totally there yet. We have the Delta variant and we still are wearing masks. But the bottom line is that we don't have those supply chain problems. More and more people keep getting vaccinated. More of the vaccine gets out. It's really now a problem of getting people to take the vaccine. Not that it's not available. It's generally available. So I think that there's been a real change in terms of our ability to handle this pandemic and make significant progress. And then the other thing I would say is health insurance. You know, in the American Rescue Plan, we made permanent the subsidies and the help for people to pay for their health insurance. And the number of people that have signed up for Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is unbelievable. Huge numbers, huge increases. Part of that is because we had the outreach, you know, we did the advertisement and we did everything to make people sign up, but also because of the subsidies, which were significantly expanded. And so we just want to continue that. If you look at what's being proposed in the infrastructure bill, whether it's health related or it's in terms of creating jobs and addressing some of the other infrastructure concerns, we're just going to build on these successes. I think that we're at the point today where we can take a victory lap, if you will, for all that we've done, but also make a commitment to the American people about how much more we're going to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, in this time of Olympics, I like the victory lap comparison. Again, chronologically, next we did the Invest Act, of which we are very, very proud. I spoke earlier about the credentials that Mr. DeFazio brings to this subject. I would like to yield the podium to him.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I go to the Invest Act, I'd like to point out some of the things in the rescue package. You know, a lot of people are complaining today because the planes are full, they're crowded. There wouldn't be many planes in the air today if we hadn't done, you know, the numerous packages to save up to a year and a half for them to get recertified to fly a plane again. Flight attendants, a minimum of 3 to 6 months, much longer probably. So that was tremendous. We also saved the transit industry. You know, people are now starting to go back to work. They're starting to move around more. Transit wouldn't have been ready and it wouldn't be there if we had not supported the transit agency through these packages. So those were incredible things that we tend to forget about. We did them, we saved them, you know what, so what? No, those were amazing things that we did that wouldn't have happened without the Democrats running the House. Now, the Invest Act, you know, I set out an objective to deal with our crumbling infrastructure, to deal with it in a way that also dealt with climate change, to create millions of good paying jobs, to reach into areas that have persistent poverty, you know, provide new transit options, you know, a whole host of things. I'm not going to regurgitate all that again. Right now, we have not yet seen a bill out of the Senate, so I can't particularly comment on it. I have been engaged, though, with my colleagues, my Democratic colleagues, who have chairs of jurisdiction, and with the White House just yesterday. And I'm expressing a strong desire that should the Senate pass a bill, that we should conference that bill and work out our differences. We've already passed a major bill in the House. It has all the objectives that the President and the White House set out for me. And I want to make certain that they're in the final package. So that would best be accomplished through a conference.
Thank you, Mr. DeFazio. And now, up until last night, we were on the floor with our appropriations bills. Mr. Hoyer, Mr. Clyburn, Ms. Clark, and I are all appropriators. So we have some good judgment about how to pass an appropriations bill. Rosa DeLauro set a higher standard than we ever knew, and we thank her, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you very, very much for your leadership and our work together with regard to appropriations. And I say that with regard to all of my colleagues as we've made our way over the last several months, in the last 17 months. Just to say a word before appropriations, it's really thrilling that with your work, Madam Speaker, and the work of Chairman Neal, that we have a child tax credit that is going to be a lifeline to the struggling middle class, as well as lifting 55% of children out of poverty in this nation. And that is a transformation. And it is Social Security, as you've quoted, Madam Speaker, Social Security for children. And we could do, well, we can do more. We need to make it permanent, but there we go. But I'm very, very excited about, we passed 9 appropriations bills. And in addition to that, the security supplemental bill. So, the focus of those bills was to make America stronger at home and again, respected in the world. And we looked at what we needed to do and looked at what the state of our country was, and decades of disinvestment, devastation from the pandemic. And the time we believed was now to reinvest in the American people. And the bills make historic increases in critical funding with the goal of creating good paying American jobs, to grow opportunity for the middle class, for our small businesses, and to provide that lifeline to working families and to the vulnerable. I may add that I'm also very, very proud of the work that was done. And I might add, in a bipartisan way, on community projects. We're bubbling up from our communities, where members sat with their city councils, they sat with their nonprofit groups, and they came forward with the kinds of critical needs that we could try to address through this process, and it happened. We have made investments in education and nutrition, rural and underserved communities, rebuild the nation's infrastructure, confront the climate crisis, again, with regard to good paying jobs, protecting our democracy, looking at the disparities, advancing equal treatment for women, fostering a brighter future for the people in this country. And we have reinvested in diplomacy and development and reasserting American global leadership. So our caucus has demonstrated tremendous leadership in passing these very important bills, and I look forward to work with the Senate so that we can enact them into law. And with that, I yield, Madam Speaker.
It's important to note that for 10 Congresses now, 20 years, Rosa DeLauro has been introducing the child tax credit legislation. And so, Mr. Neal has been a partner in all of that. But as far as Rose is concerned, as usual, she was persistent, dissatisfied, and relentless, and the children benefit. To make it known to the public, to build the consensus in our caucus, our distinguished leadership of the House caucus, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries and Pete Aguilar, who is an appropriator as well, have given us a forum to build that consensus. And our distinguished chair, Sean Patrick Maloney, he is trying to convey that message to the American people so that people will take advantage of the opportunities that are there. They and all of our chairs stand ready to answer any of your questions. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, just on the issue of voting rights, can you tell us a little bit more about your meeting with President Biden today? And more specifically, when is it? And also, if you can tell us if you do have HR 4 ready next week, when you intend to bring it up on the floor.
Well, Mr. Clyburn had addressed this very thoroughly because, thank you for your question, this is of the highest priority for us, the sanctity of the vote, the basis for a democracy, and the assault on the democracy that is being perpetrated across the country and states across the country to suppress the vote in a way that just undermines the strength of our democracy. I have not seen what has been circulated. My understanding is there's something that the Senate has put together. I myself have not seen it because I was doing our other work, and I will see it. Our hope with the White House, well, we'll see. It's the president's meeting, and so it's his agenda. But it is well known to the administration and to the United States Senate that the HR 1 is essential to us in the House because it is fundamental to our democracy. Mr. Clyburn, I think, went into some detail about what August 6th is. It's fraught with meaning as the anniversary of the first Voting Rights Act being passed in 1965, and that our goal is to be ready with something. What happened was that the Supreme Court said that as Mr. Clyburn mentioned, that we had to have our formulas updated. We didn't think so, but they're the Supreme Court. So we wanted to make the next presentation of the bill ironclad constitutionally. And we were on a path to do that until just a few weeks ago, the court again made an assault on the Voting Rights Act on Section 2. And so, we had to go back to make some modifications. I feel confident that we will be ready. As soon as ready, we will bring it to the floor. Yes, sir.
Madam Speaker.
These seats here have some kind of advantage, so you all should know that. No offense to anybody back.
Madam Speaker, should immigration reform?
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Clyburn, did you want to add anything on the voting? Anybody? Mr. Jeffries? No? Okay. So,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, should immigration reform be in a budget reconciliation bill? And if it is and the Senate parliamentarian rules it out, should Senate Democrats overrule the parliamentarian to include it?
well, I'll just address the first part and yield to Mr. Aguilar to speak to that. He has been a real leader on this issue and working very hard on it. I do believe that immigration should be in the reconciliation, some piece of that in the reconciliation. I never go into Senate rules, Mr. Aguilar.
And I don't think I'll go into Senate rules either. Yesterday, I was pleased, Chair Lofgren and Chair Nadler, as well as Chair Durbin and Chairman Menendez and a group of others in the White House to talk to the president about this and to reiterate our support for reconciliation, including immigration proposals. We should be guided by, and I know the chairs and the people behind me, speak to this as well. We should be guided by providing the greatest good for the greatest number of people in our country. And so including a path to citizenship for those with DACA status, TPS, essential workers, and those farm workers, bipartisan bills, most three of those proposals, bipartisan bills that this House has passed under the leadership of the Speaker, the leader and the whip. And so that's what we should be guided by. And that's the president's commitment, is that he will continue to support, he will speak out on this. We appreciated it. And without speaking to the Senate discussion, we're going to be guided by providing a path to citizenship for those in our country who know of who this is their country, as the Speaker has said time and time again. Thank you.
Just for your information, I'm sure most of you know this, but to qualify for being included in a reconciliation bill, the proposal has to have an impact on the budget. We have clear numbers to that effect to go forward. So again, without going into how the Senate considers something significant or not, we won't go into that and what the Senate should do if not. But we know we have a very good case for this to be included.
You said in your letter last night it's a moral imperative for Congress to extend the eviction.
Yeah.
Are you frustrated that the administration took so long to make that ask of Congress? And is it your?
I'll be happy to answer that, but let's stay on subject here and then I'll come back to that. Okay. Any questions on our agenda? I know some of our other colleagues want to weigh in on that. Yes.
I was hoping to get more clarity on voting rights. I heard Mr. Clyburn say, I think that we will have a product going to the Senate by next week this time that will meet the tests that are required. Does that mean there will be a House bill, and will you bring the House back for a vote?
Mr. Clyburn, would you like to speak to them?
Well, HR 4, or the John R. Lewis Voting Rights and Advancement Act, is what we renamed it, has, the bill last year was based upon issues that we were aware of and that were before us. As the Speaker said 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, the Supreme Court issued another opinion on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so therefore, we are including our language as to what will fix that, as well as what will get us to where we ought to be on pre-clearance. Now, I know we are supposed to be out next week, but I also am realistic enough to know that we may not be out next week or the week following it. So we are going to get this bill prepared, hopefully announce what it is on August 6th, a bill that can go to the Senate. When it goes to the Senate, it's when we get a chance to vote on it.
And may I just say, let's not get ourselves too concerned about a date. The date of August 6th is so important to us, fraught with so much meaning historically, so much pointing to the need for us to perpetuate what was what in that first bill. But when it is ready is when we'll call members back, and when it is ready is when it will be ironclad constitutionally. And I salute the distinguished whip and the members who are working on this very important piece of democracy. Other issues like nullification of election, there are other things that we have to deal with in the HR 1 beyond what was in it originally, because in the last election and since then, we have seen further undermining of the vote. Mr.
Well, we're going to continue to move forward. Thanks to the leadership of Speaker Pelosi and Jim Clyburn and others in addressing the attack on democracy and the voter suppression epidemic with the fierce urgency of now, including dealing with the most recent Supreme Court decision, as the Speaker and the Whip have illustrated. At the same time, we're going to continue to make tremendous progress for the American people. The Biden economy is growing at the fastest rate in 40 years. Millions of good-paying jobs have been created. A massive middle-class tax cut has been enacted. Democrats are doing our damn thing. And we're just getting started for the people.
Thank you. Where the rubber meets the road, where the rubber meets the road on voting is, of course, in the elections. And I wanted to have our distinguished chair of our DCCC, Mr. Sean Patrick Maloney. By the way, today is his birthday. He's 55 years old. I told him this morning in a conference that we had with members that in the casino, 55 is called hardway 10. Anybody of you go to casinos? No? Any of you go to casinos? Hardway 10, because you can get a soft 10, 6 and a 4. There's a 6 and a 4 on each die. There's only 1 5 on each die. 55, hardway 10. Happy birthday, hardway 10. It's hardway 10, but a glorious cause for celebration for the rest of us. Mr. Sean Patrick Maloney.
Just when you think you don't know every wrinkle of the speaker's extraordinary talent. When I think of the speaker, I think of being on a heater in Las Vegas. Yeah, but I have now discovered that the title of the book we're going to write together on why we won this election. It's going to be called Hardway 10 for the American people. Well, look, you've heard my colleagues speak in detail about how Democrats are delivering strongest economic growth in 40 years, a middle-class tax cut, giving families back their own money to help families, and an infrastructure plan, investing in American infrastructure to bring our jobs back, grow manufacturing, stop sending jobs to China, be less dependent on foreign energy, and grow this economy even more. And the only point I'll add to what my colleagues have said is that every Republican voted against the economic growth plan that is producing the greatest growth in 40 years. Every Republican voted against that expansion of middle-class tax cuts that is giving families their own money back. And we're going to find out where they are on infrastructure. And so while Democrats are delivering, the Republicans have told 2 dangerous lies. These are the evil twin towers of deception. A lie about the election, which led to the attack on this Capitol, which they are now trying to ignore, and a lie about the vaccine, which is making harder our efforts to end this pandemic and get our lives back. The Republican Party has become deceitful and dishonest, dangerous and divisive, but Democrats are delivering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions on the great accomplishments of the Democrats in the first 6 months, 7 months of this year?
Okay.
You had one, right?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I wanted to go back to the question on eviction moratorium where Supreme Court, ruled a month ago that Congress could act to take action on extending that eviction moratorium. Why is this action only coming now, the day that the House is supposed to leave for 7 weeks?
Okay. Are there any, I'm happy to come back to on this subject that we're here for.
On the child tax credit, are you confident that there will be an extension of the tax credit in any reconciliation bill? And would that be through 2025 or a permanent extension? And would that come with any additional aid for the IRS to implement it since they struggled with it?
Yeah. I can guarantee you that IRS enforcement is going to be in the next package. Any one of my constituents, if you said to them, if you spend $40, we'll give you 140 back. My constituents get it. And what's happened is that the IRS no longer has the capacity in terms of technology and or man and woman power to do the sort of sophisticated audits that are now required. I heard a statistic the other day, I hope you'll all zero in on, which tells the whole story. The compliance rate in terms of tax reporting in America generally hovers between 82, 83, 84, and a good year, 85% of the American people, they pay their taxes. For wage earners, because of withholding, it's 99%. That's the difference. So for those of you who are paid in wages, like I know most of you are, it's easy. The IRS collects. But now it's more sophisticated avoidance. And in some offshore addresses, it's about evasion. And there's a distinction between the two, I know, because in settled law, you approach it differently. The child credit, my intention is to make it permanent. I must tell you, the reviews are extraordinary so far. And I think part of it is because of the expansion of income levels for people who could secure that. And the other part of it has not been really reported. Some of the Christian conservative groups in America are really fine with this. They're pretty happy about it. They tend to vote on the other side, but they like this as an initiative. So I think as we go forward, the two questions you've asked, I hope have been answered.
Just very, very quickly, Madam Speaker, as the chairman said, it will be a part of the reconciliation bill, but it is already a part of the Financial Services and Government Appropriations subcommittee, which we just passed in the minibus yesterday. There is increased funding for the IRS, both for enforcement and for the implementation of the child tax credit. And we are told by the IRS, one is that we leave about $1 trillion on the table because of their, over the years, the inability for them to have what they needed with technology and staffing to make up that difference. And if you think about it, it's $1 trillion in what child poverty costs us in this country. And so what we want to try to do is to make sure they have the tools that they need to both enforce and to implement.
Thank you. I just want to say that, again, coming back to the children, the child tax credit, there are many other things that we've had in past legislation in the rescue package, but that need to be even more so in the reconciliation. The Congresswoman, Assistant Speaker Clark has been a champion on child care. So when we say build back better, we're saying build back better with women. Child care, now, not that men don't, dads don't benefit from the child care money as well. Child care, family and medical leave, early childhood education, universal pre-K, that is, issues that relate to home healthcare workers, to liberate people from their responsibilities at home in a way that they can go to work, pursue their careers, knowing that their family members are safe. So there's so many things about the human infrastructure that is in that bill, in addition to the child tax credit, which is so remarkable. Thank you for your leadership on child. She relentless, dissatisfied, persistent on the subject. One last question, then I'll go to yours.
Yeah, my question is on that thing, exactly. Because millions of people right now, of course, are holding their breath as they're watching this eviction moratorium expire. Were you caught off guard by the White House's statement not to extend it? And why did Democrats wait until now, hours before recess ends, hours before this eviction moratorium is going to expire, to try and hold a vote to extend it.
Excuse me, any comments on what has gone before? My colleagues? Any closing remarks? Okay. We're in a situation where the pandemic has, of course, taken its new shape. As we've talked before, these viruses are resourceful. When they are transmitted, they mutate, and that makes it more of a challenge. We know that that is what we are faced with now. And so the Center for Disease Control has talked in a new way about mask wearing, about that urging vaccination and the rest. The moratorium for eviction is a COVID initiative related to the intensity of the issue. And for $46 billion was allocated both in the year-end omnibus last December, as well as in the rescue package, $46 billion. This money has largely gone out to the states and local governments to implement and to give to the renters so they can pay the rent, which helps the landlords, of course, too. And the fact is that almost $50 billion was allocated, $46 billion, less than 10% of that, or $3 billion is reported today, but I say it would be 10%. Why should the renters be punished for the fact that the system did not put money in their pockets to pay the rent to the landlords? So that's where we come to this. It's like, well, CDC, you have defined this, and these people have not gotten the money. So I think this is something that will work out. It isn't about any more money. The money is there, resting in localities and governor's offices across the country. So we would like the CDC to expand the moratorium. That's where it can be done. And then, and of course, with the public message of governors, mayors, et cetera, give the money for its purpose to the renters. So this is to me a very an imperative that it be done. And as I say, time is not everything on this, except that the moratorium ends. But again, if they know that the money will be released, then we'll go there. There are all kinds of talk, lawyers who thought this and that in the executive branch. I don't know. I don't want to be critical of what, because they just made the statement yesterday. But we are, we're not going from the issue or sure thereafter. It is, I mean, have you ever seen an eviction? Sometimes even the law enforcement people go into these apartments are crying because they know they're going to do something that's going to put babies' cribs out on the street, personal belongings out on the street. It happens like that. Passersby can even take that stuff. These people have been evicted, now have to find another place to live, to take the stuff that's now been on the street. It is the most heart-wrenching and so in defiance of everything that we say we are about in the Gospel of Matthew. When I needed shelter, you gave it to me, that the words of the Lord. So I think that this is something that fairness and justice has to be done. We'll ensure that it does. Thank you all very much.
Here until the House passes an extension.
Well, we're going to have to find a solution. Today, Madam Speaker, do you think the administration can extend it?
I think this is the
Or you think the 46 days? You're going to
Okay.
yes.
Hi. conferencias afuera, no vale.
It's good.
Es demasiado caro.
I was kind of worried sure I was gonna see something like of substance on the floor, but it was. He did. Besides.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. Congressman Cuellar is at the 28th district, Henry?
That is correct.
So I just was on a phone call with Henry, with people from his congressional district, police chiefs, NGOs, mayors, and it's pretty bad. Congressman Cuellar has done everything he knows to do to try to get the nation's attention to the problems facing the 28th congressional district in Texas. We're letting you down. The nation as a whole is letting you down. What's going on in your district is bad for the country. Only God knows what the illegal immigrants experience getting to our country. And the people who live in your district are literally under siege. And I'm going to have Henry start this off by explaining the nature of the problem. I spent about 45 minutes listening to all aspects of the community in the 28th district. I will be going down there trying to help you fix a problem that affects everybody else in America, because most of the people that come through your congressional district are sent to the interior of the United States. So it really is a problem for all of us. But finally, I just want to say I've been here for quite a while now, since 1995. I've never known anybody who is willing to speak truth to the power better than you, Henry. We have a Democratic administration. Tried to work with President Trump. I had my dust ups, but you've done it in the right way. You've been respectful, but I want to be an ally in trying to get some relief to the people of your district. So.
Senator, thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you. I appreciate all the good work you've always done on immigration reform, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to working with you, going down to the district too also. We just had a phone call, because I've always told the administration, look, I'm a Democrat, it's a Democrat administration, and I've been very respectful about the administration. All I said, look, you don't have to listen to me. I'll listen to the communities, and I'll listen to the men and women of DHS, their families. This weekend, I just spent about 3 hours with agents and their families, their chiefs there, and especially their families. And they don't need pats in the back. They need help down there on the border. Today, we had a phone call, and I want to thank the senator and the staff for being there, because I want people to hear from my local communities. I want you to hear. So we had folks from Hidalgo County, which is where most of, the epicenter is. We had a county judge, county commissioners, mayors, police chiefs, and other folks there. We went to Stark County, same thing, county judges, commissioners, cities, mayors, sheriffs, Zapata, and of course Hidalgo. And you heard, Laredo, you heard Webb County, and the mayor is very passionate, Mayor Sines and other folks, Chief Landina and other folks. So I want people to hear from the local communities. And again, look, these are, and I emphasize, mainly South Texas, Hispanic, Democratic elected officials saying, we need a pause and we need some help down here at the border. We're very compassionate. We understand most of us, come from families from Mexico. My father was born in Mexico, Guerrero, Tamaulipas, became a legal resident, became a naturalized citizen. They follow our procedures. And what they see, there's a underground tension in many ways in the Hispanic community saying, hold it, we followed this procedure, we follow the steps, and we're seeing people just come in. And I think you heard from folks that were saying also, hey, we're concerned about this overcapacity. What is the end game here? You heard about how they're going to parks. And so when families want to go out there, what do we happen? You saw what happened in La Jolla, where they released people without even saying, and it was not Border Patrol, it was a local NGO, and not telling the folks in La Jolla what was happening down there. And you hear there, you hear about safety concerns. Roma, Texas, as you know, in Stark County, it's right at the border. I'm very familiar. That's part of my district. La Jolla is part of my district. And people cross and they're walking through the streets and neighborhoods, and they're saying, "Hey, people are just walking through." You heard from some of the school officials say, "Hey, what about our schools?" And there have been lockdowns in schools because they're right at the border, and people started just coming through, and they worried about their kids. So, and again, I've always said this, and you've heard me say, you don't have to listen to me. They don't have to listen to me. The administration doesn't need to listen. I've been very respectful, very supportive of the administration, but something has to change when it comes to border immigration issues on that. And again, we had the Border Patrol chiefs. We heard from Chief Ortiz. You heard about how hospitals are overloaded, as Mayor Sainz said. Hey, sometimes you have to pit a undocumented person that goes to a hospital with somebody that lives in Laredo or somewhere else. I mean, there's limited spaces. What do you do? And it's not fair to pit a undocumented person to a U.S. citizen. And, we represent, our residents, the citizens here. So I think, and I'll close on this, and I'll let you talk about the letter. We have we put a joint letter together. And I'll let the senator, and I'll follow up on that. But I thought it was important for the senator to hear directly from the communities and how they feel about this. You want to talk about
Yeah,
the
I
letter?
do. Thank you very much. And to the members of the press right here, thank you. This is a story that needs to be covered. If this were the 28th congressional district, figuratively, the room would be full of folks from all over the world unvaccinated. You would have a hard time moving around. And I don't think people can appreciate what's going on at the border until you listen to the people who live there. So we'll do another phone call, and we're going to stream this one. We're going to find a way so that if you're interested in what's going on at the border, you can hear it from the people who live through it. So what have we come to conclude? Comprehensive immigration reform, in my view, is still very much needed. But you can't legalize people, in my opinion, until you first secure the border. I was involved in the Gang of Eight, and before that with Senator Kennedy, McCain, Kyle, and Salazar in 2008, trying to secure the border, pathway to citizenship for the illegal immigrant population who are non-felons, switching to a merit-based immigration system to help our economy going forward. I still believe that. But the one thing I know you can't do is provide legal status without first fixing the border, because it will create a run on the border like you've never seen before. So this idea of putting DACA in the infrastructure package is a terrible idea until you first fix the border. And I sponsored the DACA bill with Senator Durbin. I've told him I am willing to work on a small deal, medium deal, or large deal. But the first deal is to bring relief and secure the border. So Henry and I have come to conclude it's now time for a new set of eyes on this problem. That the people in charge have had 6 months and it's getting worse. And I'm not here to throw partisan stones today, but something's got to give, right? So we were talking yesterday, what could we do? Who do we trust? Who do we believe could help us get out of this mess? And we both concluded almost instantaneously, Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson served with President Obama. He was a Democrat. I have a lot of respect for Jay. He was general counsel at DOD, and he dealt with these issues as secretary. So the bottom line for me is that we're urging President Biden to create a special position to bring order to chaos, put somebody in charge whose focus is just on the border and all the problems associated with it, that would have credibility in the eyes of Congress and that's Jay Johnson. I can promise you that most Republicans respect Jay Johnson. And if Jay would be willing to do it, and if President Biden would be willing to nominate him, I think you would find solutions pretty quickly. So that's what the letter's about. Something's got to give, a new set of eyes. So what's causing this? It was the police chief, I think, who said this third wave of illegal immigration is brought to you by Washington, D.C. The pull factors by policy changes, the new pull factors are too great for any money to the Northern Triangle to matter. I worked with Vice President Biden to put $750 million into the system to help the Northern Triangle countries with their rule of law issues, with their economy, with their corruption problems. I am willing to invest more. But the root cause of this wave of illegal immigration is not a deterioration in the last 6 months of the Northern Triangle. It is that we've changed our policies where people all over the world believe now's the time to go to America illegally, because once you get there, you're going to stay. Now, what did Jay Johnson do on his watch? We had a wave of unaccompanied minors and families coming from Brazil to take advantage of the asylum program. Jay Johnson got on a plane and flew back with these people to Brazil. He sent a signal to the source of the problem that this is not the way to enter the United States. We had 188,000 people come across last month. About 25 to 30% were not from the Northern Triangle. Every week that goes by, the word spreads throughout the world that the border is now open. If you can get one foot in the United States, likely you're not going to leave. So what we're asking for is for the administration to put somebody new, a new set of eyes, in charge of this problem and working in a bipartisan way to provide the resources and the policy changes to have a timeout so that we can catch our breath as a nation, give the people of Laredo and the surrounding areas some relief. Now, what did I learn? I learned it is hell on earth right now in his district, given this problem, that the hospitals are full, that neighborhoods have hundreds of people every day walking through the neighborhood, crossing our border illegally, and it's very unnerving. That the police are overwhelmed, that the COVID numbers are increasing, that the Border Patrol is doing the best they can. A shout out for the Border Patrol. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, I think 57 times. I've seen our men and women in the military in action under the most difficult circumstances imagined. I would put the Border Patrol and Customs agents who are dealing with this crisis on par with them. They're incredibly dedicated Americans, and I don't know how they go to work every day. What they see in terms of small children, the overwhelming nature of this problem, I just don't know how they do it, and I want them to know that Henry and I consider you all and your families American heroes. So I've sent 3 letters. One with Congressman Cuellar to President Biden to put a new set of eyes on the problem, somebody we all trust, Jay Johnson. I hope you will consider that, Mr. President. And I stand ready to work with Jay or anybody else that has a rational plan for it. Number 2, I've written a letter to Dr. Fauci, and I'll give you a copy. I don't know what we should be doing, but I know this. I'm vaccinated. I've tried to be a responsible citizen. If you're not vaccinated, you need to get vaccinated, because I think the risk to you and your family and the community goes down greatly. I think it is safe, and I think it is highly effective. How you control the COVID problem in America must include an analysis of the border. We've had 50,000 people released in the United States because the Border Patrol ran out of capability and capacity to hold them. They literally put them on buses and shipped them throughout the country. I dare say any of them were tested. I dare say that the system at the border is not controlling the problem associated with COVID coming from other countries. In Guatemala, the vaccination rate is less than 1%. So I've got a letter to Dr. Fauci. As you tell us what to do as a nation, you need to look at the situation at the border and give us an opinion as whether or not it makes sense what we're doing. And let me tell you, I think it makes no sense. I have a German engineer who works for BMW in South Carolina. So Germany invested heavily in the BMW plant in Greenville, South Carolina, Greer, South Carolina. The man wants to go home to see his, I think, mother or father, somebody who's critically ill, and I'm having to move heaven and earth to get him legally able to go back to visit his mother in Germany. I can't go to Canada. You can't go to Europe because of COVID restrictions. But we're having 1.2 million people cross our border being detained with no rational policy at all. Probably the best thing for the German engineers, go down the border, get caught, or probably send them to Germany. This makes no sense. It's dangerous. It needs to stop. So Dr. Fauci, you need to answer my letter as to whether or not you understand what's going on at the border and what changes do we need to make, if any, to really deal with the COVID problem, because I think the super spreader event of all super spreading events is at our southern border. To Secretary Marcus, I wrote you a letter last week. Of the 1.2 million people who came here illegally, how many of them have been tested? How many of them have been released to the United States? How many positives were there? And what system do you have in place to ensure testing? What happens if somebody comes up positive? And of the 1.2 million, how many have been allowed to stay in the United States? And what protocols do we have to deal with COVID? To the NGO community in your district, they're American heroes on the same footing as the Border Patrol. The Catholic charities and others are giving refuge to these folks. They're being overrun, and the system is literally broken. We're creating a national security nightmare for this country. It would be very easy for terrorists to integrate themselves in the flow of illegal immigration. Our border communities are under siege. The hospitals are full. The cops are having to do more than they can possibly do. And it is now time to define the problem and fix the problem. Count me in for investing in Northern Triangle countries as part of a solution, but the pull factors have to change. And I just want to thank Congressman Cuellar for having the guts to speak truth to power, to let the administration know what's going on the ground. And what's so sad for me is I had a mask that said, mask up the border. I mean, if you're really worried about who should be wearing a mask, you need to fix the border. This is a border completely porous and open when it comes to COVID. There are no protocols in place, and the capability of the Border Patrol to manage the flow has just been lost. We've lost control of the border in your district. Do you agree with that?
You got some big problems.
Okay, I'll say that. He says big problems, I say we lost control. So we'll be glad to take questions, but here's what's so sad for me. If I had a news conference taking a shot at Donald Trump about anything, this room would be full. All of you, not all of you, a lot of you have masks. You know, you're doing what you think is responsible for yourself and your neighbor. We're putting the people of the 28th Congressional District at risk. We're putting their economy at risk. We're putting their health at risk. We're putting the future of their children at risk because we've lost control of this issue, controlling our border and the COVID problem as it relates to illegal immigrant crossings. It is now time to work together without, you can blame everybody for the last 20 years. You can blame me. You can blame Henry. We're trying, but I'm not looking backward. I'm looking forward. And as I look forward, I'll end with this. The mayor of Laredo said, we're still pretty safe, but I worry about where we're going to be as a community in the next 6 months. The police chief said, the resources I have now are beyond the problems I'm having to deal with are beyond the resources, but every passing day it gets worse. The Catholic Charities and other NGOs have said, without some help, we've reached the breaking point. So I have listened to the people of the 28th Congressional District. Your congressman has been the most effective voice in all of Washington about trying to find a way forward. I join his cause. I stand ready to work with the Biden administration, Democrats and Republicans, but I will not let this go without one hell of a fight. Questions?
Preguntas en español or English?
Sí, en
You
español.
in charge of this, man.
I was gonna let you do it.
Una pregunta en español, si se puede. El senador Brown ha dicho que legalizar, dar camino a la ciudadanía para un grupo de inmigrantes sería un error si es que primero no se soluciona el tema de la frontera. ¿Cuál es su posición en cuanto a legalizar a un grupo de inmigrantes indocumentados en el proceso de reconciliación?
Sí, bueno, necesitamos tres cosas cuando hablamos de inmigración. Necesitamos asegurar la frontera, necesitamos un programa de trabajos temporales y necesitamos también tener una manera para hacer ciudadanos los 11, 12 millones de personas que tenemos. Usted oyó al senador, él no está de acuerdo de la Constitución. Para mí, si es posible, lo quiero ver. Quiero ver algo entre demócratas y republicanos, pero si es la única manera de poner en la Constitución, si se puede hacer, no sabemos. Todo depende de la decisión que se va a hacer. Yo lo apoyo. Okay.
Sí.
Sí.
Have you all spoken to Jay Johnson about this?
No, he's here.
I'm sure he's listening to us on that. Yeah. Look, I have his contact. I have reached out. It's been a little busy. I've been getting home by 11 o'clock. Look, first of all, we're not criticizing anybody that deals with the border, but we do need a new set of eyes. You know, businesses do it all the time. Hey, let's bring an outside person to come in and give us a new eyes. We've had a border star. If you recall, we'd had Roberta Jacobson. In my opinion, she did great in Central America. Being border, I think that might have been a little different. And she's not there. We don't have a border star. We've had border stars in the past. And I think bringing somebody like Jay Johnson, and I think you heard me, I've always said Jay Johnson as the senator, and we said, we agree on him. And he was compassionate, but he followed the law. And look, and one of the things he did, and I know we had a lot of conversations, and you mentioned also, was that, look, you know, if somebody needs to stay here, that has to stay, he stays. But if somebody, he or she has to be returned, he returned. We see images, you know, you can't just talk about people coming over, but we see images of people coming in. Has anybody ever seen a single picture or video or image of somebody being returned? They don't want to show that because, unfortunately, they don't want to offend the immigration activists. And I've always said it's good to have immigration activists, but you also have border communities, and you heard from them directly, border communities and the men and women of DHS. So what we're saying is, you know, Jay Johnson would be, we haven't talked to him, but somebody like him would be good. Somebody who has his credentials would be good. But in my opinion, and I think also the senator, Jay Johnson understood it. He wrote the playbook, if you think about it.
And let me just add that I've been involved in a bipartisan way trying to fix this problem. If they try to put DACA and the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, it'll blow up any hope of bipartisanship for a very long time to come. I think what we should do is we should have an asylum reform fix. People are coming here. We canceled the Remain in Mexico policy. Now people are coming here, making asylum claims, and they're being released and they don't show up. People are being released without a court date, 50,000 people. Guess what? None of them are showing up. I don't blame them. I blame us. So what I'd like to do is repair the asylum loophole, plug it for a while, try to find some ways to better secure the border. And for that, maybe we can do DACA and TPS. You just got to slow down the flow. You got to have a timeout on these illegal crossings. You got to give these communities along the border some hope and breathing space before you break them.
And you heard the border communities. I mean, I'm just reflecting. I'm just a mirror of what my communities are saying. I mean, and you heard them. I have not said anything else that my border communities. Remember the profile I gave you? They're again, I want to get political, but they're Democrat, they're Hispanic mainly. Now they're Americans, but they're saying, forget about political party. We need help down here. And look, last week, over 20,000 individuals. Yesterday, day before yesterday, there was a group of 509 people in one group itself. Steph, you wrote about the story about the 50 people on prosecutorial discretion. Last week, it was actually 55,000 people. That basically, people are being put on the honor system to show up on immigration. With that, I don't think the honor system should be the protocol that we should use, because as you wrote, people are not showing up. They're not given a notice to appear. So you have the notice to appear, then you have the prosecutorial discretion, the 55,000 plus. You have large numbers, and I've asked the administration very respectfully, what is the end game? What is the end game on this? And I don't know if they know the answer, or maybe they don't want to share it with me. What is the end game? And as the senator said, we got to look at push factors and we got to look at pull factors. If you just focus on the push factors down there, we've invested billions of dollars. You worked on the Senate side here. I worked with Kay Ranger, a Republican from Fort Worth, on the 750 on the House side on the appropriations. We've added billions of dollars to Central America, but we still have people coming in. Push factors, but the pull factors. If a coyote makes charges $6,000 to $8,000, and use the lower number, 6,000. We've had over 1 million people. Somebody do the math, and I'll tell you how much money. And that doesn't even include the getaways, 10%, 15% getaways. And there's somebody making money out there, and it's the coyotes.
So just adding on to the J. Johns, you're not even sure if this is something that he would want, a role or position that he would want. So do you have another name in case?
I'm open. Why did we do this? Because we feel like we're running out of time. Problem's going to get to the point you really can't. It'd be almost impossible to fix. So we agreed on Jay. We probably should have called Jay, but it's symbolic. If Jay can't do it, I understand. If he's willing to do it, the Biden administration would be making a mistake not to give him the opportunity. A new set of eyes. And I don't care who people voted for in the 28th congressional district in 2020.
They voted for me.
Yeah, well, okay. They voted for Henry, and if I lived there, I would vote for Henry. So the bottom line is, this is about the future. It's about a group of Americans on the border who are feeling the brunt of illogical policies. Many have existed for decades. They're getting worse, not better.
Senator, I think you've made clear your position on a pathway for DACA and TPS here, but Speaker Pelosi today said she supports immigration reform in the reconciliation bill. It seems like this train is leaving the station. So what can you do to prevent that from happening?
Well, number one, it will destroy the ability for me to sit down and fix this problem in the future, because here's what's going to happen. Speaker Pelosi, I respect her. We've known each other for a very long time. If you legalize anybody in this environment without first addressing the pull factors in the broken border, you'll be sending a message to the world. Look what they just did. Let's get there. We'll be in the next tranche. You'll be adding jet fuel to a fire. Not one time have we ever suggested legalization first, border security second.
So there seems to be some confusion about how specifically a path to legalization could fit into budget reconciliation. On the one hand, you have Senator Hickenlooper saying that it will be a paid for. On the other hand, you have Senators Harper and Cardin saying that there's funding for it. Chuy Garcia said yesterday that there's a top line figure of $126 billion. So beyond sort of like the legalization elements, I know you're here to talk about border security. How does these things fit together then? If you want border security, say through reconciliation, it would need obviously a new
reconciliation is a partisan process,
right,
that needs to be abandoned when it comes to illegal immigration. He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I think I can buy into aid to the Northern Triangle. So Vice President Harris, it's not that I disagree that the conditions in the Northern Triangle need to be addressed. Vice President Biden knows very well that I was the go-to Republican to put into the Senate bill, the SFOP bill, a $750 million program to combat corruption, improve the economy, and help deal with the underlying push factors. Okay? Count me in for that. But if you just did that and you didn't change the pull factors, more and more people are coming outside Northern Triangle countries. And if you legalize somebody without first dealing with the pull factors, you're going to have a wave of new illegal immigration from all over the world. We have never done legalization then border. So my belief is stop the partisan process for legalization. See if you can find ways to deal with the pull factors sufficient enough to stop future flow. I will deal with the underlying push factors, and we'll have a pathway to citizenship for a group of people that are probably very deserving.
But you don't see any way to do that in the current Congress then, given that what everybody's saying right now is that the only path forward for legalization will be through reconciliation.
I'm saying that's not a viable pathway forward. It makes the problem
even with
worse.
a border security.
But you wouldn't do it through reconciliation because no Republican's going to vote for a $3.5 trillion socialist document. Now listen, I've got the hell beat out of me. I'm sure Henry's getting the hell beat out of him by immigration activists. It comes with a job. The people in South Carolina, why are you doing what you're doing for all these years? I've got no problem with a pathway to citizenship if we fix the underlying problem. I don't want another way. So count me in for giving the people who've been here a very long time a chance to stay here on our terms, but we need to make sure that that's the end of it, that we secure our border. We have a logical immigration system. I have no animosity toward the illegal immigrants coming. I have a lot of, my heart breaks for what I see. I mean, can you imagine being in a Catholic charity, dealing with this day in and day out? God bless you. Can you imagine being a Border Patrol agent who has a couple of kids of your own? I mean, I've been there enough to know. And so I'm just begging the Biden administration. Let's call a timeout, get a new set of eyes. Let's put rational policies on the table very quickly. It's not rational that I can't go to Canada because it may hurt the United States COVID problem and completely ignore a border that's on fire when it comes to COVID. It makes no sense that I can't go to Europe or a German engineer working in South Carolina can't visit their family because we're worried about the spread of COVID if he goes back to Germany, and you're completely ignoring a border on fire when it comes to COVID and illegal crossings. So that's got to stop.
And talking about border crossings, and I agree with the senator. Look, before COVID-19, there were over 18 million Mexicanos that would come into the U.S. to spend over $19 billion. Money's for our stores, money's for our hotels and restaurants. And I talked to the secretary several times. I talked to CDC. I talked to Dr. Anthony Fauci. I think Dr. Anthony Fauci understands why can we not lift the border restrictions. So what people ask me in my district is, let me get this right. So we're not letting the legal visa holders from Mexico that spend billions of dollars in the U.S., over $19 billion a year, pre-pandemic numbers, but you're letting undocumented in. And I've asked the secretary, why are the legal visa holders a health issue, but the undocumented not a health issue? And again, I'm for strong border security. I said it in the appropriations. On reconciliation, I have a different position from the senator, and I respect his position. I want to see bipartisan. The last time we had bipartisan was Ronald Reagan and the Democratic Congress. They did amnesty. I don't agree with amnesty. I do not believe in amnesty. I can tell you that. But I want to see it bipartisan. But unfortunately, we can't do it. I've been here not as long as you. I've been here 16 years, and we've been talking about immigration. I do want to see immigration. If we have to look at that path, I know it's political. I prefer a bipartisan approach. And I know the senator's been very active in the Gang of Eight and other folks on that. But we'll see what happens on that. And it depends on what the parliamentarian says. It's going to depend on the Senate side. I've asked CRS. They told me it's possible, but they're not the final decider. It's going to be the parliamentarian.
Congressman, do you support overruling the parliamentarian if they were to?
I don't sit in the Senate, so I can't answer that question.
And also, you mentioned the preference for citizens in hospital beds over undocumented immigrants. Do you believe that you represent the illegal immigrants in your district?
Well, look, I tell you, I represent the residents here. I represent them.
Do you like that?
Yeah, well, let me finish. I want to treat the undocumented aliens with respect, especially the unaccompanied kids. I mean, we treat those kids like if they're out, treat them with respect. But I'm telling you, in my communities, and you heard our mayor, they were saying, why are you pitting our citizens with undocumented that might have to fight for a precious hospital bed? Why is the administration, they basically said, why are you pitting us? We should not get to that question. We should not get to that question, but you heard the mayor. It's not fair to be put in that situation by the administration.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Then there'll be last minute.
Because of the higher numbers of people crossing the border, it's obviously requires significant funds from both the Department of Homeland Security, but also Department of Health and Human Services. Have there been any discussions among members of Congress about providing additional funds in some way, some kind of a supplemental?
I think a supplemental on this issue is warranted after hearing. So what changed for me is I'd be willing to do a supplemental apart from a sort of a universal fix, if you can show me we're headed in the right direction. But the people in the 28th district need some help and they need it now. So Henry, if you want to work on a supplemental, count me in. But for it to be successful, you got to show that we're headed in the right direction. We're all worried about Afghan interpreters who risk their lives to help America in a war that's been going on for 20 years. We're pulling teeth to get the right number of visas. We're doing the vetting process. We spent I think $1 billion, right? I'm just perplexed. Look how hard we're trying to do it right with Afghan interpreter. The best thing for the Afghan interpreter is to pay somebody if they can afford it to go to the southern border and they're here to stay. The bottom line is this is not rational, but we need help for the border communities now. We need money into the system. They're being overwhelmed, but that money has to be part of an overall plan to have a timeout. Then we can discuss what to do in terms of citizenship and all the other combinations. But I just want to let you know, I listened today for about 45 minutes. I didn't realize it was this bad. You shouldn't, they're very compassionate people. I've tried to show some understanding. An undocumented woman in this country, illegal immigrant woman, if she's assaulted, she's afraid to go to the cops because she might. There's no upside to this, right? There's no upside to illegal immigration. The people are coming because everybody would try to get to America if they could. We just can't let everybody come this way. His father did it right. I want to expand legal immigration. I want to give those who've been here for years working while we all look the other way a chance to stay on our terms. But this news conference is about a plea to the administration and the Congress to get a new set of eyes, to work together, not against each other, to fix a problem before it completely gets out of hand. If you lived where Henry lives, if you had to go through what they go through every day, you would be thinking that nobody in this country cares about you. Well, Congressman Cuellar is making it uncomfortable for the rest of us to look the other way. I don't represent Texas. I've talked to Senator Cornyn. I've talked to Senator Cruz. They want to be helpful in their own way. So Henry, if you want to put together a supplemental for border communities, count me in and we'll see if that would be the starting point for a larger conversation. Thank you.
Let me just close up, Senator. All I have to say, top line, from listening to our border communities, they said, give us a pause, let us catch our breath. We need some help. And we're asking through the letter is put a new set of eyes and in a constructive way, somebody that has the experience that can deal with the border. So that's all we're asking for. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Hablamos pronto. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. We'll see.
Yes.
No sé si es sonido con el
I'm ready when we're